to the podcast. It's your trusty host, James, with another Polarized episode. It is Polarized, the podcast. We're talking about polarizing movies according to Rotten Tomatoes. Audiences love it, critics hate it, or vice versa. Everyone disagrees on how they feel about these movies. And this one, ladies and gentlemen, is a legendary polarizing movie in my mind. It has seen it all. Every type of opinion has already been laid out for it. We're coming in years late, and we're bringing it back from the dead to revive it and discuss it yet again and see how we feel about it. It's standing at a certified fresh from critics, 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, and poopy doopy 42 from audience. Let's get right into it. Let me bring in the man of the hour, ladies and gentlemen, Darth Brandini.
Hey, yeah, you know what oh, yeah. Screw you. Woo, yeah, man. This movie.
I love that. I love that idea of you just rolling up into the meeting of the dark forces of the universe, and you're just like, hey, yeah, what's up, motherfucker? Now, fuck you. Wow, that guy's really fucking evil. You're just like, yeah, flipping everyone off.
Oh, big time. That's how I feel today.
That'd be cool. What kind of power, if you like you start with that, like, what do you? It's the power of his middle finger.
Yeah,
it's melting my insides.
Force grip with my middle finger. My little middle finger.
That is kind of like it's like a weird. That's like a road rage Jedi mind trick that people are trying to play on each other.
Yeah,
it is, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
that's just what body language is. It's just Force Jedi mind tricks that we've all and social norms and all the way we communicate with each other. Brandon, is really kind of like magic,
right?
That
yeah,
you and I are just making noises at each other, and people get it.
Yeah, right. God.
Let's just meditate on that for
let's meditate.
If you guys haven't been to this podcast, we start every podcast with thinking.
Just a moment of meditation.
Yes.
Yeah. A moment of time spent. It's just, there's so much to get into, and it's a little overwhelming.
We don't have to get into everything.
We don't have,
everyone already did. So it's like, we can just be, we'll voice our opinions for sure. Yes. We'll go through it, but
I'm glad you're giving me the opportunity to feel however I want to feel about this, because I kind of need the space on because I feel a lot of things.
And we're going to spoiler alert, we're going to patently disagree, I think, on a lot of things.
I think so.
Let's just want to start it on a nice, happy note.
Yeah, let's start it on a nice, happy note by saying, today is a good day. I'm, always, man. I just this
Well, let's talk about. Let's start. Yeah, we're gonna get into it. Let's start with Force Awakens, because you and I saw that movie together. Do you remember that?
We did. Yeah, I do. Yeah, absolutely. I remember it. Yeah, and I remember enjoying it. Actually, so more than I thought I would, because I wasn't really a big fan of the prequels. Even though, I don't know. It's just these properties are so fascinating.
Would you say that we're more like Lord of the Rings guys than Star Wars guys? I would qualify myself a little bit more. That. There's not as much property out there, but those 3 Lord of the Rings movies I've nerded out over more than anything, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, but the thing is I've seen every single one of these movies, and most of them in the theaters, which I can't really say for every franchise. I mean, this is just, it's something that's always like, okay, well, we're gonna go see that Star Wars movie. We got to go see that Star Wars movie more. It's just it's an event, and at a point, it's
becoming
like almost just like a weird obligation. Yeah, absolutely, definitely so. And really because of this system. Because this was, movies like this would come out, every so often. Not every so often, it would come out in a string, but we've been in this time period of so much Star Wars content all the time, and I'm just so incredibly fatigued on it, just like with all the Marvel stuff, because it's like
Disney scooped it up at the same time as Marvel, and they've just pumped it out, man.
pumped it.
It's
Yeah, I
a
was
sight to
always,
see.
oh, it is always so bitter too, because I'm like, we get a James Bond movie every fucking 9 years or whatever.
Which would you prefer, though? Would you want something like this where they're just pumping out shit?
I'm James Bond.
Well, I don't know. Maybe not. This is the best example, but like these three movies as a whole is bullshit, man. Like as a trilogy, like we can agree on that. Like how they structure this whole thing did not pan out. I think even how they wanted to, and it just blows my mind how you can have so much power at your fingertips and resources, and the story just eludes you in such a way. And in my mind, it is from a, people like, we love James Bond as a franchise, has been around forever, and we know that there's movies that fall prey to, I'm sure they sit around at the boardroom and they're like, okay, like for this Bond, like what do we need? Like what, before we even start with the story, like what does it need in this? And they'll start like a checklist of like, okay, it needs this, it needs that, it needs this. And then we can fasten the story around these tent poles of things that the fans want and need. And that's where things get kind of dicey. And this is an interesting one where the fans fucking hate it and the critics love it. And I think it's because it's removing some of those tent poles and trying to subvert and deconstruct things. But like, this is the sequel to a movie that's already establishing so much, so it's not really the one to be doing that. It's so unfortunate, and the planning of it is just still is so silly to me how it panned out this way.
Yeah, because I mean, because this is now a Disney property, and they have already acquired Marvel, who is successfully and really the only production company, property owners and like operators of franchises that successfully did a multi-movie arc that people love and respect, because it was able to hit all the beats, incorporate all of these properties together in order to tell a pretty cohesive story. Sure, there were like some that were like, it kind of was like some are not so great, others were great, so there was a little unevenness movie by movie, but I mean, I think they brought it home in their like overall arc really well. I just recently watched again the Endgame and Infinity War, and you're like,
those movies are amazing for their scope.
And it does it. Yeah, because it just, and then also to allow, like it set itself up so well to just pay off like a slot machine throughout it, where it's just so like, so fun to be like, oh yeah, like, yeah, this person, oh yeah, we did this in that movie and now they're here and all of that stuff. And to then have a pretty clear point about what the villain's purpose is, have it be relatively nuanced and interesting, and accomplish it. And so like to have that as
the villain accomplishes his plan too. I love that aspect.
I love that too. Right,
like at the end of it, in Infinity War, stands strongly for me for having. And everyone already kind of like knew that was going to happen. Like there's going to be the snap, and people are going to go. And it's just like so satisfying to see these characters that they're so precious about just like off a bunch of them all at once, and then end the movie that way. And they're coming back, and they do, and Tony doesn't make it, but that moment was bold, and that's like an Empire Strikes Back, which the ending was not something that was like uplifting necessarily. It was still like, it was ominous, and you find out the twist of Defarger, and that leaves you, I don't know, wanting more and looking forward to the conclusion and how successful, like Return of the Jedi, or what's the third prequel? I like that one. Damn it!
Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of the Sith, or Rise of the Skywalker. How successful those ones are at completing the trilogy is fascinating. But overall, I'm just saying, like the sequel, it's nice when, in movies in general, when it trusts you well enough to be like, the story's not finished yet, and you're just gonna have to sit tight for a bit on this note, and sit with it, and trust people will be able to handle it. And maybe Two Towers could fit there too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Schmaug. That ending frustrated me, and if I can rabbit trail one more time.
Sure. Sure.
I don't have to. No, you didn't want.
Sure. Yeah. No, I really did not care for those.
No, it was just frustrating. Like, it's called Desolation of Smaug.
Oh, right.
And it ends with like the dragon escaping. And it's like, oh, it's coming towards the town. It's like, the desolation is coming. It's called Desolation of Smaug. And that's where that movie ends, of like, oh, the dragon's loose. Oh, it's coming to that town. Oh, no. And it's like, and then it ends. And then that's where the battle of the five armies, where it starts with a dragon destroying a town and then just battles the rest of the movie. And that's like a Matrix Revolutions. Is a lot of battles too. I'm glad we're covering everything, and we cover that movie.
Let's find the thread there as to what works about those and what doesn't work about those, because a thing that came to mind when you brought up the original Star Wars series, Empire Strikes Back, something that stuck out to me as why I think the reveal of Darth Vader being Luke's father is great and such a wonderful reveal that can be the connective tissue that carries you to the third and final installment, is because that doesn't really have anything to do with the overall plot. It is all in service of character development for Luke, because he is on a journey that we're following along across three movies that makes relatively clear sense of, like, the classic hero's arc. And that is just a aiding and abetting in Luke realizing that, he could easily be his father if he were to choose a different path. But now he is then presented with the option, like he's presented with what his reality could be if he were to go down that path. And then he chooses the opposite, or chooses a different path. And then that's what the third one is all about, is really just kind of a reconciliation of who he's going to be as the next leader of the Jedi, which then gets us into this, because he is really kind of leaving by and large where Return of the Jedi ends, and give or take, I don't know, probably maybe realistically the amount of time
since Return of the Jedi,
since Return of the Jedi, right? Like in actual time.
Yeah, if you look at him, he's aged real time, and and very much this movie. And I'd be interested in almost like to go to like discuss in the kind of like at least the first half of the movie, the people are kind of separated, and the chunks
of course.
So if we can kind of hone in on the Luke and Rey part.
Right. But before we do that, though, I should have peed before. I'm gonna go pee real quick.
Oh yeah, go for it. We will. No worries. We'll be right back.
So we're back. We're talking Rey's. Yes, let's get right into the really what sets the tone for the movie. My necklace came in. I'm wearing.
Hell yeah, dude! Look at that necklace. It's dope. Can you run me through some of those charms?
I have I have a money stack, a slice of pizza, and then a peace sign.
Cool. Can you add more? Are you going to add more stuff, or is it pretty much done deal?
I could. Awesome. I don't know. We'll see.
That's cool, man. But yeah, I was kind of talking about. We are back. I was talking about the kind of parallel that, of course, and that was the first thing I told you. I remember when we saw Force Awakens driving home, I was like, that was A New Hope. Repurposed, and for better, for worse. But the beats are so similar, and much the same way. This is Rey going to get mentored by a hermit living in a swamp. I guess it's an island sort of thing. But Yoda to Luke to Rey, and that is that chunk of the movie, which is one of my favorite parts, is the whole Luke Rey stuff. So I was curious what you felt about that.
Yeah, I felt very bad about it.
Yeah,
I did not care for it.
A lot of people hate how Luke is characterized in this movie. Is that something
that's a safe assumption? Yeah, I take issue with it as well, because
even Mark Hamill took an issue with it.
Yeah, as well as he should, because it really, the way that the Force Awakens leads it up it's just, he's such an important person for the overall objective to eliminating the First Order, which is the uprising. Which there was a lot of things at play that were really fascinating about this new world building that they did, because it kind of just makes me think of this reality, the reality that we live in, of this alt-right insurgents and neo-Nazism and fascism just becoming more of a God, I hate saying it, but popular. And so, having the First Order be these, stormtrooper Nazi looking people like that they always kind of represented, that first movie is really just about somebody that comes from, meager beginnings, just like in the classic series. Ends with her being now she has a better understanding of what her purpose is, at least in the sense of, I'm going to seek out somebody who is going to be able to guide me better on this journey that I'm on. And then
the whole point of the first movie was finding Luke.
The whole point of the first movie was to find Luke. That's all the Force Awakens was about. And then to get there and then immediately treat it as a joke.
I love
as
it. That's
gives a shit.
Yeah, that's what Yoda would do as well.
So I thought about that. I'm glad that you brought that up, because I did think about that, because when Luke does in the original series meet Yoda, he his whole Yoda's energy about this is that you're building up all of these people, you're you have all these preconceived notions in your head about what a Jedi Master should be, what it means to be a Jedi, and he just is,
tear the past down. That's what Kylo wants to do. That's what Yoda is saying, and that's what this movie is theming, is kind of representing as well. And that's something that I'm riding that wave of what it's telling me in the text, and they are using Luke to prove this point. And a lot of people take issue with that, which is exactly what the people in the movie are so frustrated with Luke about, is like, you're this great hero, you're this great legend, you've done all these great things, you gotta be this way, you gotta do this thing. And that's exactly what all these fucking Star Wars fans are saying too. Like, oh, Luke, you're the hero of my childhood, this is who you are, you're the hero incarnate, Joseph Campbell incarnate hero of like what you need to be. But it's just so much more fascinating to deconstruct him as a man and his faults and failures, even so much so as having the Force power enough to see this darkness in the student that he was training, and have a fault. Like he fucked up, and he was caught in that moment. And that story, how they changed it 3 times, is interesting. But he's caught in that moment, and things fall around him. But he had the intuition correct in a lot of ways. But then his choice in the matter and how he showed up, that could have affected it as well, and that could have been the main thing that made Kylo evil. But overall, just to get back to Luke, I like how and that's what he was trying to tell her the whole time, of it's just he's embarrassed, and he's going out to be a hermit, because I think he is embarrassed of his actions and everything, and he does feel responsible. And I don't know, to have somebody that's just going to come in and be exactly who he's been all throughout the original trilogy. It's been however many years, and everybody's all separated, like Luke and Leia and Han. And that fracturing is more interesting than just all of them are still together doing their thing on the Millennium Falcon, running around as they always have been. I like the fact that it's able to echo Empire Strikes Back with Yoda, and also put a spin on the lore and the classic character that is naturally going to upset people. And I totally get why people would be upset, because they're taking something they love and being like, it doesn't fucking matter, let's burn it all down. And it's like you put too much faith in these legends when they are just men. And there's this, I read the Dune books recently too, and that was kind of Dune Messiah kind of did that, the second Dune book after all the Paul stuff, and I was nerding out about that. And I don't know, that's my take on it, but I heard that.
No, that's fair. Yeah, and that's going to echo, through the critics. And if that is the stance.
If Lord of the Rings came back and Vigo was a shitty king, I'd be like, wow, You better do that well, because that's an interesting way to do that. And for people to be like, yeah, you got to really do that well if you're going to take that big of a swing. And it's a big swing, but I just prefer that than just doing the same shit over again. And that was just more interesting to me. So that would be my piece about the Hamill Luke stuff. But
that's fair. Yeah, because I understand that's the side that I am at odds with. And that is the mentality that is the counterpoint to me being like, man, it really like, because immediately I'm like, oh man, it really sucks that he doesn't give a shit about anything, and that we spent time, really overcoming great odds to get here, and then it's completely devalued, and there isn't any gravitas or any like importance placed on the ability to get there, to I don't know, also too, with so much time spent on that island, how little he has thought about all the other options, and it's just really let kind of pessimism reign and be totally. Like his whole
it's ugly.
Yeah, like his whole character now is just a bitter old man, because it just really flies in the face of what he know. Like, yeah, I get it. You're like, I get a part of the point that you got too up your own ass, and that was your detriment. You were like, this is all important. It has to be this way, yada, yada. And then Kylo comes around and shakes that like foundation or goes against him. And that creates a rift and a problem of like, oh, right. Like, I'm not just training Jedi, I'm potentially training Sith here, and really coming to terms
it's like
with
the nature versus nurture sort of thing of like, was he always like that? Did I instill that final, the final act of me possibly threatening to kill him? Was that the final thing that turned him over the edge, or was he already going that way? And that's
a really good question though, because I mean, his parents are Han Solo and Leia. So what do you think was
granddaddy is
what do you think the draw was?
The draw for
Kylo to be evil.
That is
really seemed like it daftly handled.
It'd be great if the movie got into some of that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because it made reference to it, but I was like, ooh, this is really shitty way to do this. Because
and the Knights of Ren and stuff, all that origin shit would be like to get a little bit more of that,
right? Like who are these other ostensibly, right, like other
well, and he said that
acolytes, right? Like
Snoke had already turned him, I believe, is now I'm remembering is what he said of like he knew like Snoke already turned him, so there was no hope. And then like, yeah, he sees a scared little kid,
but then even Rey says to Luke is that he's not gone. Like your downfall there was to assume that there was no other path,
right,
other than what you envision being, his end or whatever.
The fallible legend, the fallible hero is just such, I don't know, that's a dynamic, interesting concept for me. But to apply it to Luke Skywalker, leading after this first movie, it is a little bit of a fuck you, I'm sure, in a lot of these fans' minds, and doesn't really jive with the trilogy, and kind of
doesn't at all.
Stands apart because the first and third one, J.J. Abrams, like, he's trying to wrap up in the third one, like what he set up in the first, and that Rian Johnson takes a detour in this one to not really cover. And I believe that he was going to have another trilogy to himself. I'm not sure if that's still happening, but I don't think so. But maybe, I don't know, but
it is so interesting because I think we mentioned this before, but that there's been this thing for Marvel, and this is kind of a really good example of it too, right? Because Rian Johnson going into directing a Star Wars movie, I mean, God, he had directed what, 2 movies?
This is after like Looper, right?
Looper. This is after Looper, and then before that was Safety Not Guaranteed, which is such an incredibly small movie. Which it deals with time travel, and that's just funny because both of those do have sci-fi elements. So I guess that's why you kind of like get him into the conversation. But the point I'm making is that these major studios, and Marvel being the biggest perpetrator of it, have gone with this like process and methodology, and I think mainly because of a lot of like 2000s faux pas that we had, where you're just like, oh, we're just going to get a well-known action director to come in and do these movies, and then they end up being like really middling, really bloated, expensive, not something that sticks around. It's like people go to see it in the theaters, but then they forget about it the second they leave. And Marvel, again, in particular, was like, for these movies, we're going to pick these more artistic directors or indie directors and give them because like, and this movie is also an amazing example of it, is like, sure, Rian Johnson's the director, but there's so much about the production of this movie that is like on rails. Like, you were going to get a movie that looked like this almost irrespective of Rian Johnson. At least the action sequences and a lot of the other like background stuff of the way that it looked is like, you're gonna get like this is a well-oiled machine.
I thought it was interesting that he even incorporated lens flares. And I was wondering if J.J. Abrams was like, you gotta get that lens flare in, motherfucker. It was just in that Benicio, like with a prison or whatever. Like, right, like, fucking, I can't see.
Benicio in this, another just, man, they must just have, I mean, obviously Benicio loves money, so why would he want to fuck up a good thing? But it's just funny how he's in so much like of these, like he's part of like the Disney
he's in he's the collector or whatever in Marvel like, too, right?
He's able to be in a Star Wars movie and Marvel movies.
With him is just, he looks like he's having so much fun in those roles, and he's doing such a great job as well of like being like understanding the assignment and knowing like, I can get pretty weird with this and chew some of the scenery. There's a lot of scenery here. Like
he makes a buffet out of the shit that he's given.
I mean, that stutter, and there's a moment where
that wasn't written in the script.
Oh no!
Sure.
Oh no!
It was like Benicio. It was like I got a couple of things that I'm bringing to the table, and then people are just like, get out of the way of Benicio because he's making choices.
Do you think blip blap bloop was in the script? Because that's one of my favorite moments.
I mean, what I know about
blip,
Benicio
blap,
is that he just like
so funny.
Like throws he like reads it once and throws it away and is just like, okay, I got this.
It's really great how
I'm gonna rip it.
Not precious. He gives it, because like sometimes Ray and Finn are just, and that's who their characters are. That's just like, this is the most important moment of my life, and it's like, and it's of course like, I am the hero of this story, and I'm gonna do the right thing.
Right.
And it's like so flat. And to have just
it's like incredibly
this,
flat.
And that's why like movies like, or the shows like Mandalorian and Andor are doing so well. You see these seedy sides of Star Wars, and I think this one taps into it as well. But before I get to some of that stuff, I wanted to talk about the other, because there's the other portion that's kind of starting at the beginning is the Poe, Holdo, who else?
Stuff. Oof.
I mean, Finn is around. Not my favorite either.
Ugh, yucky. That stuff.
Not my favorite.
Sucky.
Yeah, it's like such a weird pacing. That all of this stuff is like it's kind of just feels strangely drawn out, and the back and forth between the ships and everything is like, it doesn't. And the thing that really, for whatever reason, I can't put my finger on it. Of like, Holdo's character just doesn't work for me.
No, it doesn't.
It does not read properly, and I don't know what it is. And I understand like maybe the impetus is like trying to put this other new spin on like, we're not going to have these trigger happy fucking pilots like Han Solo that are going to save the day with a single thing. Like, we all have to stick together and do this as a community sort of thing. But the way that she comes across is like just unclear about how I, as the audience member, should feel about her. And maybe that's
because she has a secret
as well.
And that's the thing, right? Is she has a secret that she isn't telling anybody about, and so we're always just like a little unsure.
What exactly is the secret of like?
The secret is that she knew that she was gonna kill her. So that's the thing.
The
is
Holdo
like
slice or whatever they fucking call it.
Right, absolutely.
Oh, she's gonna do a Holdo slice. Oh, I've never seen a Holdo slice again after fucking 2396. Holy shit. But that in particular, that was cool. That was the coolest thing. But leading up to it, like I honestly,
people hate that though, James. Hate that happened.
That was it doesn't save her character for me. I still doesn't.
Oh no,
doesn't track with her and
rock
because I thought it would just win way more interesting. And this is where I would try to. I know everyone likes to rewrite this movie, but I just thought and when I watched it the first time, I'm like, she's fucking evil. She's for sure working for Snoke.
Sure, yeah.
Like she's for sure like a mole or something like that, and Poe's gonna figure her out, and then Poe's gonna do the Poe slice or some shit.
Yeah, surprise! She's actually the smartest person in the room, and
ends up being the martyr and the hero for the movie. And it's like I didn't feel warm. And then like Leia comes back, and then she's immediately like shoots Poe. And all that stuff. And then Leia coming back was like, does not work for me as
it made me very mad.
Yeah, that does not work for me.
One of my biggest fucks. Like I hate this the most because we had found out going into this that Carrie Fisher had passed away. Right. So there was a lot of hubbub, leading up to this of like, oh, how are they going to deal with Carrie Fisher passing away? This is, obviously they had planned for her to be in, all three of these movies, yada, yada. And it was incredibly shocking to see this movie and go like, whoa, so they're going to kill her this way. Her son kills her and like we have to deal with that. And
is it matricide? Just both like
right. Patricide, I think.
Well, that's for Han, and then is it matricide?
Oh yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
He's just and that's like, wow, this guy's
evil, really doing some fucked up shit.
I love Kylo. We gotta at some point go.
I know, yeah. Oh my god, can you put on a cowl or something? So stupid.
Stupid.
I hate
the humor in this is pretty.
The humor in this. Okay, so just to back it up real quik before we get into,
we said our piece. You got anything more to say about Leia? The Leia thing?
Oh yeah, like it frustrated me so much that instead of actually killing her in that moment, which I think that's what they should have done, is they should have just killed her, because then that adds so much like to who Kylo is and what needs to be like dealt with from him, what he has to deal with and what other people have to deal with him because of that. To then introduce a force power we've never ever seen in the series of her being able to fly through space was like, I lost it. I almost fucking walked out of the theater when that happened, because not only do you just introduce something that is never like understood, explained, whatever, you're also like, why bring her back? Because she's not, as an actress, not there anymore. Like, why? Like, it blew me away that you wrote her doing that, and then to write her back into it drove me bananas.
It was confusing.
I hate it so much. But okay, so the comedy
moment
of
that she shares with Luke is very nice.
Fine, yeah,
but
fine.
It seemed like that's to me is part of the reason to have that final thing with those two at least sharing a moment. But who knows? I totally agree with you. You're saying I had the
why
same,
not subvert that
I
shit?
had the same,
you're talking about that. I mean, come on, don't give them a clear-cut beautiful ending. If you want to subvert something, just be like, man, you know what, people in your life fucking die and it's tough and you got to deal with it. Not this like forced mirror image. It's bullshit that you go and say goodbye to everybody in such a buttoned up casual yeah, now I'm getting fucking. But okay.
No, it doesn't fully work for me, and then it just incapacitates her for a bit. You get Holdo,
right,
and then it just kind of is like stalling people. Like they're just keep shooting, and kind of dragging it out. But what did you think? Speaking of like new Force stuff, what did you think about the connection that Snoke placed upon them? He's like, it was me. I'm not going to say how I did it or why or when, but I placed the connection between you two.
It sounded like a broken record, but did not care for force phone calls.
I liked it more this time.
I wrote the note, this force phone call being had is dumb. I hate this. This is so stupid.
I don't know why I liked it this time. I didn't like it as much the first time I saw it, and I was like, this is weird, but I think maybe because I knew it was coming, I was like, yeah, I was just more accepting to like the new stuff that he introduced in terms of force powers, and it makes me I mean, if I can go back to the Luke thing for a second, like what he says to Rey really hit home for me, and what this movie's trying to say as well, of like something about like the force isn't just for the Jedi. It's for everyone. So like the Last Jedi, it's like
it's a force. It's a force of nature.
It's tearing down the system, man, and giving it to everybody. You don't need these books. It's like it's a language that everyone can speak or whatever, is, you know, whatever, how many midi-chlorians that you might have.
Yeah, throw that out the window. That's not a thing.
Yeah, that's not a thing anymore.
They're just like, just rewriting how dumb that is. Just like a bunch of stuff that they were rewriting. Because I don't like, again, I can't stress that. I brought it up, but I can't stress the point enough about how fucking pissed off people are that a major plot point is shooting the ship in hyperspeed through the other ships, because that just like really fucks everything up for people, because then you're like, oh well, now why haven't we always just like take like a dummy ship
without a person,
and turn it into hyperspeed, and it's a missile. It's like a fucking let's get 3 ships, put them in hyperspeed with no one on it, shoot them towards the direction of the Star Destroyers, and call it a day. And it just like, and then, oh my god, how many fucking times I wanted to take a tally. Visually it looked awesome. I'll give you that. Visually it looked fucking cool.
That was enough for me.
That was great.
Everything you're saying is making,
concede to that,
but everything you're making is making sense and is completely logical. And just kind of like, I just don't care enough because it looks cool. Sure, because you're just like, oh yeah, it's cool. Yeah.
Totally, but I mean,
because they're never gonna do that again. It's like that's sort of like in fantasy movies where a big superpower will show itself, and I was like, well, why don't they just use that every time?
Why don't they just
why doesn't Green Goblin use those vaporizing grenades every time and
all the time? Right, exactly. Which
turns out one of the skellies.
I don't. Yeah, me personally don't want to get too hung up on that, because I do agree with you that visually it was cool. It was cool that the way that it like the light cracked through stuff, and then all the stuff editing in space and the audio, and then it was cool. But like, man, also too, how I wanted to take a note of, like, I did take a note of tracking through light speed is such a big deal. And I should have taken account as how many times people were like, wait a minute, you can't track through light speed. Like, so many fucking people are like, wait, what? Tracking through light speed tracking, what? No, you can't track through light speed. And everybody just like understands it. No, you can't track through light speed. And then, but it's like,
it's like, well, if we destroy it, then they're going to track that other one. So we got to jump onto their ship and destroy their tracker. They had like took great lengths to explain that we got to go to Casino Planet.
Canto Bight. Canto Bight. Let's talk Canto Bight.
Right. That's the next thing. We're not missing anything, right? We get the introduction to Rose and.
Rose introduction, I guess we could talk about, because she is and then
like in her sister's connection, which also, speaking of interesting things that happen in outer space.
Let's do that.
Yeah. Drop the bombs in outer space.
Is
those like magnets that are pulling? It's just like she hits that hatch and all of them just like dropped to gravity.
There would have to be pressure pushing them down, because you could push them down and that would work because there's no gravity. So if there is a mechanism that is pushing them down, then sure. But visually though, it looks like cool. It does look cool. They're just a bunch of and the way that the ships are designed is they're like solely designed for
bomber ships
dropping bombs. Pretty into that.
There's some cool new science about it. Oh yeah, no, those are bombs that are just attracted to Sith ships, and
sure,
they got those Sith magnets.
Okay, so specifically about this that really drove me nuts from jump, which has got me in a mood every fucking time I watch this, that drives me nuts, is that we essentially start the movie off with a joke, a phone call joke.
No. Like, yeah, that humor doesn't work either.
A prank phone call is how we start the movie off.
The humor's pretty rough and the one-liners.
It's not a bad joke, but I think specifically my problem has always been with this and is always so glaring when it is done wrong in movies like this, because it has been done like this in movies before that are really bad, is tone. Let's talk tone. Talking tone right now. Is you just had a very witty repartee joke, which again, the joke's not bad. I don't mind the joke.
Just shitting on Domhnall Gleeson in this movie.
Cool, shit on him. He looks, good.
It's shit on him.
He's the leader of the bad guys. Like, yeah, shit on him. Like, I'm okay with that.
He's getting it from all sides.
But within 3 minutes, maybe 5 tops, we are now dealing with a lot of lost lives. Okay, so joke, lost lives. Those should be relatively far apart from each other. Not to say this movie has to be drab.
Yeah, you should show them the graphic that you make.
Yeah, the super serious. Like, that's not what I'm getting at. It's like, you can't have death in a movie and not have jokes. No, come on. I mean, watch, fucking In Bruges. I love In Bruges.
That gets very emotional too in those deaths.
Absolutely. Of course it does. Because it handles all of that with such a wonderful finesse that it's like watching a masterclass in comedy and dark humor. This, on the other hand, you're like, wait a minute, we were just laughing about Domhnall Gleeson being a fucking piece of shit, and now Rose's sister is dying, all these other people are dying, now we're talking about how fucking fucked we are, and then we're gonna spend another 15-20 minutes of like, everybody's fucked, people died, Rose is crying, consoling Rose, then her being like, wait a minute, you're leaving, wait, fuck you, my sister died, how could you? And it's like, so many beats following it are wrapped around how the seriousness of the situation, which understandably so. You lost your sister. Like, and you know what? All those people who are like criticizing review, like audience wise, about the wokeness and about the bullshit about Rose and all of her shit, fuck those people. They suck. Like, Rose isn't really a bad
speaking of
character.
bombing, there's a lot of review bombing going on.
There is a lot of review
some bullshit. She had to like cancel her social media shit because so many people were hounding her. It's just
giving her shit.
It's insane, man. It's kind of shit.
None of it is her fault as a person, first and foremost.
It's crazy if you even have to say that.
Like, right? Like, fuck you. Like, it's not her fault ever for anything. She was given a script and she acted her ass off on it. Like, in no way did I watch her performance and go like,
in my mind, she's like she is the heart of the movie. In my mind,
she is the heart of the movie.
Like
I just wish
whole
she had more
theming
interesting things to say.
And that's what comes back to like the humor. And there's some one-liners that just don't fully work for me either, even though I love the messaging and again, like,
because she's like, talking about the Cantobidians being like, isn't it so disgusting how everybody's just profiting off of this war and all that stuff.
That worked for me a lot more this time than the last time too. I think last time I was so distracted by the prequel like visuals in this casino scene that I had a hard time like honing in on like all the stuff that was happening, because it's just like, oh wow, they're really going full prequel green screen, Lucas green screen and a lot of this stuff. But being more prepared and accepting some of that stuff I got with all that whole scene was representing and all the underling side of this vast empire and like the people's, it's just like the people's history of Star Wars, a little bit more of like getting into that. And that's what Andor and Rogue One is a little bit kind of touching on the disenfranchised and all this shit and how, and the profiteers of war, and Benicio's character also. Right.
He shows them. He's like
it's a great, that scene, like the casino scene, like does something like it at least
it shows cool
like Rose's character is able to flourish a bit in what she represents. And Finn, as a former stormtrooper, who has been on the other side as well, comes to terms with what the Empire, and the rebels both, and how Benicio fits into his node and into how he can profit off everything. And yeah, I don't know. It just reminded me a lot of, the almost commentary on the war machine of today in a lot of ways.
Which is the part of this movie that you will win me over a little bit on, because I agree. That is interesting. That is something that we haven't dealt with. That is taking a perspective, or taking the like lens of Star Wars and going like, ooh, let's like blow this out a bit. You know what? There's actually some stuff we can really like play with and evaluate here about the world at large. Because time and time again, when we've seen like the Republic or the ruling class or like different, kind of governments in this solar or in this galaxy, it's very brief. It's like really a lot of the time it's just like right before they're about to get murdered. Like we see like not Corinthian, but like Coruscant or like some shit like that. Like in the first movie,
multiple planets get taken out.
Right.
It was cool to see them for a second, even though they're like, "Oh, we're all gonna die." But it was like, "Oh, look at all these interesting people on this planet." Oh man.
Sure. So yeah, I mean that stuff will win me over a bit, but then yeah, it is so incredibly ham-fisted, like in the writing of Rose's character and of Rose and Finn's journey, where all she is spitting out is platitudes about like,
you're right.
This, I hate this. This is, look at all these disgusting people. This is what money does and all of that stuff, which like, yeah, I mean, God, I get why you would have that perspective for sure. But like, you're just standing on the outside saying things about it. And there isn't a lot there. There's, they're really
telling you exactly how to feel about it. Yeah.
Right. Like you're just such a passerby of like a point or a concept, and you're never really getting into it. You're just like, yeah, that thing over there sucks, doesn't it? Man, it really fucking don't like that.
Yeah, such a detour of kind of like, and yes, and here we see Casino Planet. This is how I feel about that. And we're out.
And we're out. And we're gone.
And I was that in where they like have to take out the tracker? That's in the end of Empire Strikes Back too, right? So I don't know. There's just certain beats and arcs of the movies that are just never going to fully go away, which I don't know is also frustrating in its own way. But yeah, I appreciated that a little bit more this time. Justin Theroux, the master.
He's able to just get. I don't know what he like. I'm so forever.
Apparently Joseph Gordon-Levitt's somewhere, but I didn't see him
as an actor, because he has managed to always get in those roles where he has no problem putting on like facial prosthetics or like being
a silly accent.
Like silly accents and being a weirdo all the time. Like he has no problem doing those things.
Seems like a cool
and
dude.
It just, I don't know. Yeah,
you get like Daniel Craig cool too as a stormtrooper, uncredited, I believe, but he's like the one that unfastens her thing.
That's in Force Awakens.
Oh, it is. Okay, yeah, you're right. Never mind. I was thinking of the Rian Johnson
Stormtrooper 007
Craig connection, but I guess it's an Abrams one. So yeah, we're out of Casino Planet. We've done the Holdo maneuver, and I think everything kind of coalesces in Crate, right? Is kind of where we're at. Is it Crate, the salt?
I mean, we could. Well, here I've been having some beer, so I'm gonna go to the bathroom one more time. But
yeah, do you think?
I would like to. Before we get to that, let's talk about the Kylo Rey Snoke situation, because that's like in transit.
Okay, we'll be right back. All right, we are back. So you wanted to talk about the Rey Kylo Snoke thing. That meeting happens near the end, or is that before Crate, or that's kind of at the same? No, that's before, because then that is before, because then Kylo is like storming the gates with Domhnall, and there's that whole power struggle. So let's talk about that meeting, because that was in my mind the first time I saw it was so flashy and unexpected that I was just kind of like, whoa, this is fucking awesome, because we haven't seen real lightsaber battle either, so this is close to that. And then Snoke getting taken out, but thinking about it more as well, it's you just like, well, what does that mean for Snoke? And I remember that was caused a lot of divisiveness over like, well, they just killed off Snoke with no explanation. What's that about?
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that was
And
really
then you get your
shocking.
explanation. And are you happy with that?
No, I hate all of it.
Yeah,
It's
it's
so
so
dumb.
bad.
It's like it's funny too because like it's weird to come to terms with like me wanting things to be more formulaic at times and like because I and you've known me long enough, it's like that's usually the opposite take that I have
I
about
know.
stuff.
Yeah.
And like and it's just so weird to be
And that's why
presented with like
critics like don't care about any of
yeah,
this shit. They're just like, cool. Like we're just looking on like more of these qualities of a movie and like not
uh,
so precious about who these characters are and what they mean and the larger scope of things. And I think that just hangs up some of these fans of like from enjoying it. But
me too.
no, but I'm not
I
blaming. Like I again, like if you don't like it, like
no, I
I
know.
don't blame
And I'm
you
not
at all
yeah.
in any way or
No, and we're
should. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, it should be said, like even though we have a podcast about polarizing movies, you know, more often than not, we're pretty close in
Yeah.
agreement. And when we do disagree with anybody,
That's what's so
I
interesting
mean, we're
about this
not,
one.
yeah, we're not going to like, yeah, at a bare minimum, it's if you have a different opinion about this, that's okay, you know. And
There's some reasoning,
but
some review bomber bullshit that we'll call out and be like,
that stuff we
fuck
fucking
you.
hate. Yeah, that shit fucking sucks.
And we've read some like
Yeah.
downright trash people reviews from lining out
Just garbage
reasons
opinions,
that
yeah.
have nothing to do with the movie. And
Right.
yeah.
And that's
it's currently happening
always like-
with Little Mermaid as well, which is it's those people
Is it
are
really? Wow.
on certain play, not on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it's like on Metacritic for whatever reason, but people are just
Oh, interesting.
stop it.
But anyway, so with Snow, yeah, like it's crazy because again, like I'm actually more on board with it being more of a classic arc of it drove me nuts that they killed him because it is so light on him in Force Awakens. Very ominous, very like, ooh, who is this Sith Lord that has been pulling the
so
strings for the First Order?
He's got like these scars. He's got this cool golden cloak that you get. I love his golden cloak in this one.
Big head,
yeah,
like decayed face, weird shit going on with him.
He's probably been around a while. Like,
yeah,
he's
it
not
seems
a Darth.
like
he's just a Snoke. And people were like theorizing so many things. I was trying to remember some of the silly ones, but
there were some silly ones. But by and large, it
like
was
I remember it was the youngling that Anakin kills. That some people were thinking that like he didn't fully kill one of the younglings or something.
Right, sure, right. There's such a cottage industry for fan theories like that. It's so interesting for properties like this, right? Where there's going to be a fucking 1,001 articles about who Snoke is, and to really just say fuck you to all of those people is so bold, which again, which is why in my mind this is such a critic favorite movie, because I mean, critics by and large have to be going to movies and going like, man, people are just like they're just turning their brains off and wanting to be spoon fed. And this movie challenges so many of those conventions that it's not surprising to me at all that a critic would be like, I like this movie a lot, because this movie does a lot of the opposite of what you expect. And but I really wanted something that was like, the way that Darth Vader is. I'm sorry, but I wanted okay, Kylo's Darth Vader, Snoke is Palpatine, and over the course of 3 movies, there's going to be this,
and then you find out it literally is Palpatine, which is just such a fucking bummer, but
I know,
or just like a Palpatine creation, whatever. That's so fucking convoluted. It's
nuts. Like a clone of some shit, right?
Yeah, he just like makes these like Snoke clones. It's just always, I don't know. It's such bullshit.
Fuck, man, that really. Well,
but I like the shock value. There's just, I think it's also, I think like I'm craving, and maybe it's inciting that in me purposely so, but it's not as satisfying as maybe they think of. Like I am craving some, even it's cool, kill him, whatever, but at least give me like a little something of like who he might have been and shit. And I'm even okay with the fact that Kylo, like Kylo, our friend Kylo Ren,
Kylo Ren,
like you can tell that he's not being honest about her parents and her lineage of like, oh, they were like traders, farmers, whatever. They just like traded you for scraps. Like his acting is so fucking good, dude. And in that moment, you can tell like he looks like he's lying or he's not like telling the full truth. And I loved that conversation after, because just based on his performance of how he gave that, people had these conversations of like, was he telling the truth? Was that really it? Because he's just kind of stutter, like pauses and does these little eye fluctuations. And it's like, and I like the fact and what ends up happening with that, we can get into another time. But when I remember thinking at the end of this movie, I'm like, I'm definitely fine with that. Because then the idea of expanding this universe and not having it always be about fucking Skywalkers and Palpatines and shit. Like it seems like the smallest fucking universe in the world. It's like she should be from fucking nowhere. Like that makes it even cooler. And this whole thing about the forces with everybody, it means that anybody that even from fucking Jakku, which I love how everyone makes fun of what a shithole Jakku is.
Yeah.
And then
Luke
they just
says that. He's like, oh, that is nowhere.
And that's for me. All the stuff that's set up in this movie is pulled under the rug for me in the next one. And that's where I get frustrated. And that's where I think people feel the same way people feel about this one. So I get it as well, but I like the fact that that it would be more innocuous. So it would be just as much this little boy that's from the stables is like the new Rey, you know? And I like that messaging a lot more rather than like, oh no, it's Palpatine. Palpatine is not only responsible for Rey, he's also responsible for Snoke, and he's always been there, somehow returned. And anyways, we shouldn't get too far into that. But
we shouldn't get too far because that gets us into
we're talking about the trilogy at large in some ways, and we talked a little Force Awakens, how it's set up, and how this whole thing is just not planned well and not charted. The course is not charted out. But yeah, so that's, I mean, crate, I'd like to just maybe finish off with some crate stuff before we go to reviews. Maybe any sort of stuff about that. Like I think that I have I'm not crazy about the animals in this movie.
Oh no, absolutely not.
Like the horses, I don't really care how the horse things look. That doesn't look really that great. The crystal critters looked a little cuter this time around, but once he says crystal critters, I like jump out of my seat every time. I'm like, they called them crystal critters
because it's just such at least to me, I'm sure it's like
come up with an alien name like
something that's like
Suffasis,
right, something like that, for sure. I mean, maybe I'm sure it's like not totally commonplace, but God, it's like damn near close. Is that we all know that Disney has made movies in order to sell merchandise. It's a fundamental part.
Give me the crystal critter.
Fundamental part of their strategy in creating the content that they create is it is very, very, very well documented that time and again, the CEOs of Disney, when it comes to their direction of properties that are getting produced under their watch, here's the structure. Okay, we're going to release this in theaters. It needs to have X, Y, and Z characteristics of it because we're going to turn this into a ride. We're going to sell merchandise from it, or we're going to do a direct-to-video sequel of it. So it has to have these characteristics of it, or else you're in trouble, director, whoever, you're in trouble. And
this is a big fucking set piece for sure. Yeah, this is made for...
Absolutely. And you just...
It's
in
like
this movie,
they do the Hoth at the end of the movie.
That's the thing that I would argue drives me fucking nuts. Because if you want to sit there, I'm not trying to be like you sitting there, James, I'm gonna shoot you. I'm gonna come over there with a gun. But like, if you're gonna sit there and say like, isn't this movie so refreshing how subversive it is?
I got you.
Interesting artistic swings it does, but then it fucking ends in a set piece that's like Hoth, but not.
within
It's
this
Hoth,
within the
but
system.
instead of so it's salt.
Yeah,
Like,
no, I totally agree. It's just like, and you brought it up earlier.
to the
It's like
AT-ATs, it's
within the system,
guerrilla
like
AT-AT.
you're like for hire director to, and there's
Exactly,
the
right.
structure that is in
Right.
place. And I think Ryan Johnson,
you
for
know.
what it's worth, works within that structure and makes his trademark known in this movie in a way that is hard to do. And like the Lord and Millers of it all, they got fucking kicked off, I think, because they were making too much of a mark. Which they're good filmmakers and they make good stuff
Sure,
for the
right.
most part, but they put old Dusty Ron Howard in to finish it off, to make things more generic. I feel like, unless and
More, yeah.
but I think
more
within
in-
the system, especially for a sequel that's already part of a trilogy, there's certain things that have to be in place. I think he does well within the system that's set out for him, but it's also an odd pairing, and I get why it doesn't work for a lot of people, and certain things don't jive with me of everything, because you can tell it's like strained of their ideas and how he's fit in with it, everything. But also, yeah, I'm curious what a J.J. Abrams full-on trilogy would be. I don't know. Their decision making with this still baffles me. And
I think we know, because what we get in the third one, I think, is a really great example of what we would have gotten. I think we would have gotten, and
but we would have gotten that sooner, and he would have stretched it out. But yeah, I don't. He's notorious for just constantly just leading the thread a bit, and all the lost stuff of writing in the fog and everything. Like he's
such a student of Spielberg and Lucas, but in like kind of the worst ways at times in my mind. Like, if it's like placing importance, it's like, it's obviously a work of art is almost like a statue, right? People walk up to it and they'll interpret it however they're going to interpret it, and the majority of it is bringing their own notice to it, and really like putting who they are onto a piece, and it's more of a fixed object rather than something that's like, like something that moves or is fluid and changes. It's just so much of what we bring, and it just, to me, a lot of JJ Abrams stuff is like, right, like I'm obsessed with these aspects of George Lucas and of Steven Spielberg, but it like kind of loses the thread, or like misses some of the more like,
it's kind of a shiny looking car, but the engine
is
kind of like,
but the engine's full is it's like doo-doo. Right.
Yeah, because it's flashy in more ways than one, because he uses so many fucking lenses.
We're not obsessed with the Millennium Falcon because it's the Millennium Falcon. We're obsessed more so with Han Solo driving it and being like the person who's giving it life. Like, you're focusing on the it's that whole, like how a lot of Marvel people and comic book people like collect Funko Pops, right? Like, the Funko Pop is fucking dumb and pointless. Like, the thing that you love is that it is representative of a character, but even then you're focusing on the character and you're not focusing on their motivations that led you to loving them. It's like, it's so
like a trademark sort of thing. Yeah,
it's like cart before the horse shit. Like, oh, again, you're losing why, and it's like the argument
that's what Boba Fett is, right? He was barely in those fucking movies, and people put
right,
so
and
much
he started off as a toy,
just,
and then he kind of got reworked in, and all this
gets launched into a Sarlacc pit in 2 seconds. I see. I know my Star Wars.
I mean, how can we not? Yeah, because these,
Barely.
I mean, to start concluding it, I'm down to go through some of my notes if you got any. But
well, I was just thinking of like any like last crate stuff of like Luke showing up as a hologram. If you didn't,
maybe it's because I didn't like any.
I think it's,
I was like,
I think it's cool. I think that's such like he was an Obi-Wan kind of thing to do, and or the conversation with Yoda. I really like the conversation with Yoda, the effects that Yoda had of being a Force ghost,
because he was a real puppet.
Yeah,
I
so
love
cool.
that.
And Frank, I think Frank Oz must have, he's still around.
I think so too. Yeah.
That was, I love that, and he's such a little he's a little stinker. He's so funny.
I know.
And he's got kind of like the more bulgy eyes and the funny mouth. He's just like doing a lot of ho ho. Good. I think that's some good stuff. And then overall I liked the set piece. And then what happens at the end, really, that's much to talk about. It's kind of just like Kylo's the new big boy, and Rey has
Snoke
like a
said.
connection with him. That's kind of like, we'll see where that's gonna go a little bit.
Yeah. It just leaves off of like Kylo. Yeah, what is the leave off here? Is Kylo has now usurped Snoke, so he is now the leader of the First Order.
Mhm.
And then he also kind of has this vendetta to convert Rey because he feels like she could be converted.
It's such like the lead up to Return of the Jedi, because that's what Luke
Yeah.
is going to try to do with Vader. and she's
Right.
gonna try
So
to
we
do
just
with
leave
him.
it there, right? Yeah, we just leave it there.
Oh, that's the broad. Yeah, that's the broad side of it all. And you know, Luke.
And what's going on with Poe and what's
disappears.
going? Yeah, I don't know. I know that a lot of people had issue with how
Poe meets Rey for the
Finn-
first time. That's what happens. He's like, "Hi, my name's Poe." She's like,
Yeah.
"I'm Rey." He's like, "I know." And then
I like Oscar Isaac.
And then,
I'm a fan.
And then
of
she
his.
like sees Finn and Rose, and she's kind of like, "Oh, okay, they're considering itemhood," to borrow a Benny and June phrase.
Wow.
Considering itemhood, I always like that. Yeah, I'd be down to go through some notes. You can do anything. Oh, yes, he can. Oh, I don't remember that. Force does not belong to Jedi. Wish I could put my fist through this whole lousy, beautiful town. See, these are these one-liners. I'm gonna highlight some of these that just like feel like a little Chat GPT. Like a robot wrote them. I don't know, or just how they come off as just like so like on the nose, or like you were saying, speaking in platitudes. Like, I wish I could put my fist through this whole lousy, beautiful town. You didn't fail, Kylo. Kylo failed you. Holdo, incompetent? Shallow? Or my question marks. I was like, is she just incompetent? That was like, is she incompetent or evil? And it was like, no, she just follows the code.
One of the two.
Like, I was just trying to figure out what is her deal.
Like, I know, right? Because she's so cagey, and then she's also like, against Poe so quickly. So she's disarming him so quickly. So you're like, well, something's got to be wrong with her, because she's
holding something.
There must be some like bigger plot that she's trying to defang Poe, because he's the only person who could be like, protect.
And then I kind of got the feeling like when Leia comes back, I was like, oh, she was just doing everything that Leia would have done anyways. And maybe it was harder to accept from a new character. If Leia was doing those things, maybe it would have been more acceptable. But I still thought that friction between the two just didn't pay off for me. And besides like being a cool cinematic Holdo slice, the day for night, there's some like day for night stuff, which like, I guess works when you're on like an alien planet with Luke and stuff. And they showed and I thought that was like an okay way to like establish why it looked that way. But there was a big moon, and she was like walking around at night, and I was like, oh, this is not night. That's
no moon.
This is different. That's a fucking sun. That's a star.
That's a sun. That's no moon.
It is sun. Because just how it was lit.
I feel like I would be remiss. A big note I have here is, talk about milking those creatures for the green milk, because that is disgusting.
Yes, everyone can agree on that. I'm kind of fine with it in there. I know it's gross and weird and disgusting.
I don't like how they're not like cow-like. They're like they literally have the energy like, hey, I'm just sitting here on the by the water, hanging out, and like have this like humanoid characteristic to of just being like, yeah, I'm just hanging out here by the water. Oh, hey, and then he just comes up and starts milking it, and then it's just like, and you're like, oh god, so fucking gross.
Yeah, now when I think about it, it is
kind of, it is all over his beard,
satisfying of like. Yeah, you fucking Star Wars fans, I bet you're wondering where all that blue milk came from. This is it, huh?
Is this what you wanted?
Yeah, it's green milk. Oh, it comes out of the right tip. Blue comes out of the left. Is this what you wanted?
So gross. Fucking
it is.
It makes me mad.
I don't know why. I just like love when there's weird shit and it's like so weird, and it's just kind of
it's so
like,
weird.
I think it's like a novelty now, and like I guess you could call it a meme, if you will. And then curious to see how these will be memed, and if there's still memes in 20 years the way they did the prequels. But it's just, I don't know if it's campy enough. A lot of it is generic, and but who knows? Who's to say? People are growing up with them. We'll see what they have to say when those little youngsters are making memes of their own. No, they're already out there doing it. Let's see. Well, you are the last. I am the last hope, or you are the last hope, or something. They say. It was like, oh, I get it. New Hope, Last Hope, Last Jedi.
Yeah, Last Jedi. Last Jedi, you will.
One weapon I really liked was one of those red guys had a fucking Soul Calibur 2 blade that like would split into like that one character in Soul Calibur 2.
Where it's like a chain, like it could like be solid as a sword, but then it also broke out into pieces and was like a whip. Yeah,
he had one. I was like, oh, that's
I want that toy.
Yeah, I know. Give
me that toy.
I like rewound it to like look at more like
movie and like whole like Finn Phasma fight, which that was I was watching some reviews from people, and that was such a like a clear hit. Finn's whole character arc is a great example for some people why this movie and this series sucks.
It's frustrating.
Yeah, it is very frustrating because of the lack of the direction, which the point
because his has so much potential as a character.
So much potential.
I was so excited at the beginning of Force Awakens. I'm like, dude, they are taking the mask immediately. What they do in Force Awakens is like they show blood. He takes off his. I was like, wow, that's blood in this movie, and then like you recognize that's who he is because the blood's on his mask. Like that's just a great visual thing. And then he takes the mask off, and he's just trying to escape from war because he's been taken from his family at a young age. Like all this stuff works
like
so
everybody in the stormtroopers, right?
Yeah. And like to get more into that. Oh my god, to humanize the stormtroopers was such an interesting angle, and they just
and just like with Luke Skywalker throwing the lightsaber away.
I think
it's just like, nope, we're not doing
placing him on the casino mission was in character for him to see that side of war. And I thought that him, talking to Rose, like I used to be a stormtrooper, and then they're kind of foils in their own way of people who had their young lives fucked up and are displaced and have to make do in the same way that like, yeah, I don't know, the people making money are impartial to war as well. It's like people are going about their lives in whatever like benefits them kind of best. And to have Rose, who is so I don't know, empathetic and charitable, or I don't know what, like just cares for people. It just bums me out that people hated her so much. That made me so sad. It's like, goddamn people, we can't have anything nice. Yeah, and
can't have nice things.
I was looking at some more notes. One of those guys got beheaded. I thought that was pretty cool. And the red guys,
no kidding, chopped in half, pretty brutal.
Yeah, his hand's still sitting there like on the armrest. Way more. Oh yeah, okay. Poe gives BB-8 little scratches. I thought that was funny. He's like, who's a good BB-8? Who's a little booby?
I like BB-8. BB-8's cool.
Yeah.
BB-8 passes the vibe check.
Definitely. Like not overused. And I like that there was like an evil BB-8 just for a second. That was fun.
I also like too that they gave you the interior of how BB-8 works on a ship. I thought that was such a cool scene. Like,
his little hatch.
Yeah, like he like drops into the middle of the ship and is like working on stuff. I was like, oh man, I really enjoy this. And then how he's able to his head separate from the ball, but like can come back together
like a magnet.
And stuff.
Yeah, I liked how I was like, oh no, he's separated, and it just
BB-8's cool.
You get some you get R2 back as well.
Yeah, you do get R2, and you get 3PO.
He's.
Don't give me that. What is she saying?
How they just kind of like dismiss some of it because he's just always prattles on so much. That was they kept that in character. I like this.
Oh yeah,
that line. I just was like another one of those like, is this a robot wrote this movie or something? Like, I am human and I like this. I think I go for food and beverage. With my friends.
An effective way to have the audience feel what you're feeling in the film is to tell them exactly what they're feeling.
It's not simply about smiling and enjoying yourself. You have to state exactly how you feel in your internal monologue. I feel like
just remember.
I feel like she read the script of like Ray likes this in parentheses. Ray likes this.
Yeah, we're having fun.
This is good. You feel
this
good.
is good,
and I feel
just
good.
Remember, when writing a movie, the audience who's going to be viewing this movie are a bunch of dumb diaper babies. And if you don't explain to them exactly how they're feeling, they may be confused.
If Kylo only was like when things didn't go his way. I don't like this.
I don't like this.
I wish things went differently. More in line with what my character wanted.
Frustrated.
Disappointed.
Disappointed.
My last note was Luke gives himself a different haircut as a hologram. Did you know that?
I know, yeah. Kind of weird, right?
He's like trying to like live up to the legend. He like gives his hologram like legend, like, oh, the legendary Luke haircut, I feel like is what he was.
I mean, if you're
like,
able to
the
create
Matrix.
a whole image of yourself.
Yeah. Why don't you give me
could you imagine if he was like really buffed and like doesn't have gray hair and he's like this fucking young version?
He could have done it. They de-aged him and fucking.
They could have fucking let it rip and just been like, yeah, I'm gonna be the best version of my fucking self if I'm gonna create a mirror image.
This is my last moment on this.
That makes me think of this. So I watched some of History of the World, the TV show that came out, and there's this. It's pretty fucking hit or miss, like very hit or miss. But there's this one bit where Mel Brooks is like. The whole bit is like he's able to make himself look however he wants to, and then so what he does is he makes himself look like the really yoked cool version of himself. And it was so funny to just hear his voice out of like this. I wonder if I can show let me see if I can find a picture of it, but it makes me think of that. Like, yeah, I mean, if you're like given the option to have another version of yourself, you're gonna just make the same exact version of yourself? No way.
Well, while you do that, can I pull up some of these reviews?
Yeah, please.
All right. Just to remind everybody, we got Last Jedi at a certified fresh 91 by the critics, a 42% by the audience. Let's get into some feels out there. I'm going to start with the critic side. Let's check out some positive reviews. We'll go to The Guardian. Jordan Hoffman, a 100. A perfect film is a 100. While there are some solid nuggets of deep-cut Easter eggs for hardcore fans, what is so extraordinary about The Last Jedi is that this is the first post-Lucas Star Wars film that feels free to dance to its own beat. This is just a...
Yeah, it's really dancing to its own beat by giving you almost exactly what you expected, but making it weirder. Yeah.
This is, I know this one's funny to me. A recognized film critic, Ty Burr from the Boston Globe, gave it 100 on Metacritic, and the blurb underneath it says, "It's not a perfect movie, but it may be a great one." He gave it 100. I think 100 means it's a perfect. I don't know. I thought that always meant it was a perfect, but maybe you beat to your own drum, buddy. That's what I learned from Jordan Hoffman from The Guardian. From LA Times, another 100, Justin Chang. Easily its most exciting iteration in decades. The first flat-out terrific Star Wars movie since 1980s, The Empire Strikes Back. It seizes upon Lucas's original dream of finding a pop vessel for his obsessions. Akira Kurosawa epics, John Ford westerns, science fiction serials, and fulfills it with a verve and imagination all its own. Wow. Wow. Let's get at least below a 100. There's a good amount though. People just giving it tens. We'll do IGN. Let's do IGN with a 97 as a video game publication or website. Star Wars The Last Jedi is the quintessential Star Wars movie. It embraces everything in the franchise that came before while taking big risks to push the story into new and unexpected places. And then we'll do And we'll do 2 more. There's a lot. From Time, Stephanie Zacharek, 90. No matter how much money has been poured into a movie, it's emotional generosity that matters. And Johnson gives without squandering. His great gift is that he knows when to stop. And then last one, from New York Times, Manola Dargis, 90. Yes, the latest Star Wars installment is here, and lo, it is a satisfying, at times transporting entertainment. Remarkably, it has visual wit and a human touch, no small achievement for a seemingly indestructible machine that revved up 40 years ago and shows no signs of sputtering out ever. It's... I was gonna... Okay, yeah, man, everyone who's anyone really gives their opinion on this movie that you would care to hear from. We got all the publications here. Oh, this is the one that I like to check in every now and then with. The Christian Science Monitor with Peter Rayner, sure. A 75 out of 100. Star Wars The Last Jedi is the 8th movie in this series and one of the better ones. I'd rank it behind The Empire Strikes Back, still by far the best, and the first film, but it's about on par with the enjoyable last episode, Force Awakens, which also awakened the long, moribund franchise. I've never said that word. I've read it before. Moribund.
Oh, got it.
It's not spelled bound, but I know what the word means. Whatever.
Like more to come, right? But it's like one word, right?
It's like it's like deceased, like more, yeah.
Oh, morbid.
Is like kind of what's that word's moribund. More like, cause like I don't know, more is like the kind of death and everything. At the point of death. I'm going to try to see if...
Moribund.
Oh, there we go. Google did it for me. I'll share my screen so you can hear it. Moribund. I get my practice in. I hope you're enjoying this. I feel like I've done this on the podcast before. I need to make it a segment of like, how do you say that word? You ready?
Moribund.
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 Moribund. Moribund.
Moribund.
Moribund.
Thanks. All right. Then we're going to go to audience reviews here. Let's check out some negative reviews from fans. On the Tomatoes, they give it a 42. Stinky. And I'm going to pull some from Metacritic. Is really the same situation where it's an average 4.1 by audience and a 84 by critics. It's interesting how that... I guess it's just, like a 41 and a 84, I guess you could say. But there's some, real intensity with some of these reviews, but let's get into it. We'll start with a 0 from Grasshopper. They say, here are some scores from the so-called professional movie critics on this site. The Godfather Part 2, 85. Star Wars Last Jedi, 85. The Departed, 85. Silence of the Lambs, 85. The Pianist, 85. Fargo, 85.
This is one of those movies that we gave high scores to and no one's ever seen it again.
Now it's up to you to find the mistake. Proving their point. Gary Antis gives it a 1. Guy who directed this should be fired. So great potential after Force Awakens wasted. Ridiculous choices and bad acting. Only Finn put an effort in it and director forgot about him. Movie was so bad that I created an account just to write it. From Hunter Zolomon gives it a 0. The worst part about this movie is not that it's a poorly written movie with terrible or non-existent character arcs, poor plot, out-of-place humor, or ham-fisted political commentary. It's not even that it ignores established Star Wars canon or lore. It is awful because it attempts to ruin everything about Star Wars that made it such a beloved story in the first place. Instead of wisdom, we get book burning. Instead of optimism and faith, we get nihilism. And instead of hope, we get pessimism and despair. The movie is an all-out assault on Star Wars as a phenomenon. It left me cold. It seems as if the people in charge of the franchise at Disney really hate the original trilogy. Charged up.
Charged.
Do maybe like a couple more, 2 more. Drew Man 82. One gives it a 1. I'm writing this review to document that I am a real human being and not a bot, which frankly is a pathetic excuse for apologists of this thing to make. The Last Jedi is just not a good movie. If this were any other franchise, we would all be laughing about it in a MST3K / riff track sort of, Mystery Science Theater, riff track sort of way. Because Star Wars means so much to people, there's polarization. Yeah, that's perfect. This movie isn't bad because I didn't get what I wanted as a fan of the series. This movie is bad because I didn't get what I wanted as a fan of movies in general.
Yeah, there we go. That's
lame jokes, unlikable characters, a boring plot that goes nowhere, and some of the worst editing and pacing I've seen this side of a Transformers franchise. In 6 months, when this trash is on home media, all of its supporters are going to have a hard time defending it. The only good thing about this movie is the commitment by every actor to try and make it work. Star Wars movies are supposed to leave you with a want to come back to the galaxy far, far away, and I honestly don't care after this movie. People saying what they feel. I'm going to do one more. From New Zealand gives it a 2. New Zealand as a country came out and posted this statement. This movie left me empty. It was way too much like Empire Strikes Back, but in such a bad way because it was so disconnected and implausible. So many lines said by characters made no sense. A disconnected, senseless movie. I've never watched a movie and thought, what are they doing? Why did they say that? And if the director could please tell me how bombs fall in the near vacuum of space? Fair question. They really need to teach more science in schools. How about no bombs at all? I thought Star Wars was about laser beams and lightsabers. I could go on, but why bother? Let's just join the critics, clap our hands, and drool at all the fancy cinematography. Note, I am an old Star Wars fan. Yeah, I didn't figure that one out.
Yeah,
but have no desire to watch any more new movies.
Shocking.
Excuse me, I need to leave and attempt to empty my memory of this ridiculous movie. I remember people like actively trying to like remove this from the lore and like sign petitions. I feel like we're like, can we remove this from the lore and redo this the same way that they try to do the Game of Thrones? I don't know. Some of that stuff is just, it's silly to me. It's like you can walk out of a bad movie and it's okay. But but on the same hand, like if we can, I mean, even relate to, you know, the most recent James Bond and how that affected us and the end of that, I think that, you know, affected some old time James Bond fans of like, fuck, they
absolutely, yeah,
really changed how
really
we're supposed to feel about
crazy
this guy. Yeah, more nihilistic and pessimistic sort of way looking at the James Bond world, and you kind of have to like deal with it a little bit. So yeah,
right.
I kind of get to an extent, and for me, it's like I kind of felt that way when Jurassic World came out as a longtime Jurassic Park fan, but like. Even like as much as I like the second one, the third one is okay. And all of it just seems like more limited than the world that Star Wars, the universe that Star Wars offers is like, oh, you can tell so many different stories. I mean, Jurassic World and all that's like telling the same story again of like opening a park and it goes wrong. Yeah. Except there's more people there.
There's not anything inherently wrong with that.
No, and I didn't get and that movie's not like great,
a negative,
and that ends up being a trilogy as well, and it just kind of gets worse and worse.
Characters are the problem,
and I just don't. Those ones don't leave me running back to it. But I think there's something so intense about Star Wars where people really hold it to such a high regard in the stories that it tells. There's books that are made, there's shows, there's games, there's so many things. There's amusement parks. Disneyland has Star Wars, and it's just so big and vast that as people, I think they even tell themselves their own stories that they want to hear in this big universe about. There's just so much, you know. So yeah, getting intense about a franchise reviving itself under Mickey Mouse and doing it in a shiny, glossy way. Yeah, it's gonna leave people feeling differently. It's just interesting that it's a critically favored Disney Star Wars movie that audiences just like hate, and a blockbuster that audiences just like dump on. Because for a blockbuster to make swings, it's just an interesting little nugget for a middle movie as well, the one that should be pushing things forward from the first one and then leading things into the third one. It really seems kind of like it's own thing in a weird way. But I think, I don't know. Do you have any other feelings about the polarization litmus test we just took, and then you want to move into your review and a score to match.
Yeah, I mean, the polarization is clear in my mind is that, you're given at the helm of this movie is somebody who has made some interesting statements in their own movies before that, brought that into this movie, and he was given the reign to continue to make those, not odd, but different choices. And yeah, for better or for worse, I get why this is polarizing, because I can sympathize with people wanting, a lot of the stuff that I liked about Force Awakens was because that it was a retelling of the old one, of the old series. And yeah, for better or for worse, I mean, yeah, again, it's just weird because usually I'm all about um not doing that, but there is something to be said about telling a
It's kind of doing
classic
both. It's
story.
trying to like have its cake and eat it too a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. So,
Sorry to cut
no, yeah, no, it's so clear just watching this movie how, it's this, yeah, there's no middle ground in this movie. This is one of those movies where you're either gonna love or hate it, and
Definitely.
I'm curious where you are gonna put yourself on this love or hate it spectrum. Where are you at? Let's hear it.
Oh, you're not gonna give your score yet? We're gonna.
Oh, you want me to go first?
Oh, okay. I thought that was your kind of final review right there.
No, you know what? No.
This is how I feel, and then like, what's your score? Like, we can say it at the same time if you want. I can say my piece, and then we can say our scores at the same time.
Oh, okay.
Whatever. I don't know. Just continue on, and then say your.
Yeah. Let me just.
I think we know generally like what side we're gonna lie on this.
Yeah, we know which side is. There's a lot about this movie that I did not care for. A lot of it is because of the Cake and Eat It 2 is a really great. This is a wonderful use case of that, because not only does it have a lot of the same stuff from a lot of homages to the older movies, but it makes these choices, these really big choices, to be different, and it overall makes me feel like it just devalues what has come before in a way that is a bitter pill to swallow. And it's, maybe there's an alternate universe where I'm like really loving the challenge of that, of not being given the soda and given the water instead. But in this case, it really just doesn't work for me. And a lot of it has to do with how disconnected the story is from a lot of things, and how, it's hard not to want to make certain, just like, this is what I loved about this old property. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but you are just so far from that it really, it's not good for me. I'm going to give a score for this movie. For me, this is a 42%.
42. Fair. And I think you, laid out your issues very well this whole time. I feel like it's been interesting, it's been nice hearing kind of like every side. I feel like not every side, but our sides are kind of different. I think that's been interesting to, in a way, highlight more out of this movie than we normally would sometimes when we do agree so much, because it is a lot of like affirmation of like, yeah, I feel that way too. Yeah, this movie's awesome. Or yeah, this sucks. Yeah, I totally agree. It was fun having this back and forth with you, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. This was fun.
Overall, I think I've come down to this movie has more good in it than bad for me. It takes some swings in some ways that I really enjoy, and I think starting out, the space battle and all that stuff is a normal way to start a Star Wars movie, and the sacrifice of the person like plays out well cinematically, and there's a lot about this movie that cinematically plays out if you don't think too much about bombs falling and all that. But I will give in that
that's such a small nitpick. Yeah. Right.
But I will give in on some of the humor is a little bit like little rough for me, but also doesn't ruin the overall what they're trying to accomplish with the characters and I think the theming and the messaging of this movie rise above some of the the narrative issues with namely with the Holdo Poe stuff, I think kind of not censors, but not fully utilizing like the characters in those moments and having them just be locked into the ship and having to move through space at a slow glacial sort of thing. It's kind of, and then all the Leia thing is the weaker part, but to move out of that to discuss those are kind of more criticisms. I think for them to slow the movie down, have Rey and Luke have conversations was my jam. Like them just like talking about the Force and talking about what's going on internally for her, but also not giving too much away, because I think the idea of her past not really mattering about who she is now and what she's going to do, and giving her independence apart from the stock that she's been placing in the whole world, the whole universe has been placing in these legends to come to their aid or represent what they want to represent, rather than that person being who they are. They are expecting that person to rise up to this preconceived notion of what a hero, what a Luke Skywalker would be and should be. And I thought him instilling that independence in her and looking in her and also and teaching her something, but also learning something from her about Kylo. All that stuff played well, and the connection between her and Kylo worked better for me. It was a kind of a little bit of a cheap use of exposition, I think, between having them have that connection. I know that's how I felt the first time. I'm like, this is just a way for them to like connect them and have these conversations about stuff that they wouldn't otherwise. But those conversations were so important about revealing his side of the story, and then later revealing Luke's, and the stories that you tell each other and everyone around you is a game like a game of telephone. And that plays into those stories we tell each other about Luke and heroes and everything. And then the casino planet worked a little bit better as well. Love Benicio. Phasma coming back is like fine. And I even like thought about like, oh, she got thrown in a garbage compactor last movie. And I was like, oh wait, that's the perfect plot hole, because that's what happens to fucking Luke and all them, is they get thrown in a trash compactor and they get out. So they showed it's passable. If you have an R2, but R2, and then I think that's just my overall thing. Just it's more good than bad. I love that whole idea of the Forces with everyone, and the final note at the end of the little kid and all that. Just it warms my heart, and it bums me out that it really like makes people so upset, but it is what it is. And I know if you're Mark Hamill and you also aren't sure about the characterization of somebody you've played, one of the most important things you've ever done in your lives, then I trust his intuition. But I also appreciate Rian Johnson taking that hero and deconstructing the hero's odyssey, and like the whole Joseph Campbell of it all was, I think, warranted to refix that a bit. And then it also gave, I thought, more weight to Rey. And I thought the first half of and having Rey and everything was handled well. So more good than bad. And I think the bad doesn't outweigh it too much. I was leaning between 70 and 80, so I'm gonna go 76.
Love it.
76. Oh. Sounds good. Yeah, this is I didn't expect to like it this time around, because I feel like hearing so much discourse after the first time I saw it, I almost didn't want to revisit it, because I'm like, then I'm just going to see all the things that those people said, and I'm not going to like it as much. And I saw what people were talking about, but still, it's just such a feel movie for me. I just feel it when I watch it, and it makes me feel warm and hope in like humanity and that whole sort of like how they describe the Force is really, and how they build that lore out in this movie is something that I've latched onto more than a lot of the other Star Wars movies. And I get why some of the critics have have been so hot on it as well is because it's just again, this is like the perfect fucking movie for our podcast, and it's one that I was looking for an idea for a podcast, and this was something that I had considered, and then I was browsing through Reddit and I saw an infograph, and this was one of the highest listed most polarizing movies, and I saw this infograph of all these movies that were polarizing, and I sent it to you, and so yeah, this is one of those that really, if anything, like started the podcast in a lot of ways. Of like,
wow, yeah, for sure.
This idea, so for us to be polarized on it is very fitting. So I think this is really funny too. Yeah, this kind of been the perfect episode, and I've been really looking forward to doing it, and I'm glad we knocked it out. And you may think we're done, but next time we will be doing Rise of Skywalker to close us out.
Yeah, let's close it out. Yeah.
And get finished with our feelings about the trilogy and how J.J. Abrams attempts to get it back to what he was trying to do, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
It is. I haven't seen that movie since theaters either, and that was like a fever dream. And it holds.
I remember coming out of it being like, I love that.
Cool. Hell yeah, really nice.
Yeah, I did. And then I thought about it more and I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah, who knows what'll happen. I feel like there's some good stuff in there. There's going to be some good stuff, but it's like kind of being on there's this ride called X.
Yes.
At Six Flags, this amusement park near us. And you like do like flippies while the car itself is doing flippies while the train is doing flippies as well.
Yeah, because it's all about like X being that it like rotates and yeah.
And I looking at it, it's like, wow, that's insane. We got to try it. And I remember when it first came out, it's called X2 now. It's funny to make it a sequel, but every time I come off that ride with people, it's like, what just happened? Like, I think either people like it or they're just kind of like, I feel sick and I have no idea what just happened. But most of the time, it's kind of people kind of confused of like, I don't even know what that was. That's kind of how we felt walking out of Rise of Skywalker, was like walking out of like one of those crazy coasters. That one ride at Disneyland, the Rise of the Resistance. We should do that's how we got to end the Star Wars. We got to, in between this and next conversation, we got to go to Disneyland and ride that together.
Okay.
Woo!
We gotta go.
Well, yeah, we're off to Disneyland.
Off to Disneyland.
Just for one ride, and then we're good.
Then we're out of there.
Been a true pleasure.
This is 5 hours later.
And then we just come back and start recording again. We're like, okay, we did it. This has been a true pleasure. I see Mel Brooks in the chat. It is very funny.
It's funny, right?
Yeah. That's God. What a class act. I love that guy. Just watch Blazing Saddles again. It's like a yearly revisit for me. It's just too funny. And him in it, just the cross-eyed mayor, is just the funniest thing.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, that was us. This is you. This is where we part.
We are all together.
If you'd like to reach us, you can watch us live, Polarized. Twitch.tv/PolarizedPod, Twitter.com/PolarizedPod if you want to reach us there. Send us a line at polarizedthepod@gmail.com. Join us on our other podcast, ProdPod, where we talk about music producers. We're pretty new. We've done about 3 episodes so far. You can reach us on like Spotify and Apple. We just got on Apple Podcasts as well. Rate and review and subscribe on there as well for both of those. But yeah, that music producer podcast was really fun. We did Diplo, Todd Rundgren, Barry Gordy of Motown. We are currently investigating a certain Max Martin, a creator of culture at large, and just fucking single after
bangers,
single,
baby.
banger after banger. It's been so fun listening to so much Max Martin.
Hitsville, more like Hits Martin.
It's been a fun way to listen to music, to chart the course of producers, and it's taught me a lot about music.
It really has. It's just so like this podcast taught me about watching movies as well. That has taught me about music by and large.
Yeah, join us on the ride. We love it. And we have our good friend Corey / Blarge to join us there too. A great musician. We just saw a little brief concert report. We saw his show, Nowhere Land, recently. Great band. If I can do a little plug at the end, check out Nowhere Land. They're working on some new stuff. We saw it, and it is awesome. Really good tunes. And Brandini, Darth Brandini, I will let you take your leave.
Okay, everyone. This concludes this portion of the podcast. Don't forget your bags and whatnot, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, have you noticed Darth Brandini's been kind of nice lately?
Yeah, well, anyways, okay. Bye-bye.
Oh no, is he gonna show me the finger again? Oh no, he just blasted off. What a cool guy. All right, see you later, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.